When I put the key in the lock of my house after 2 weeks visiting my cousin Helen in Florida, I felt that something was terribly wrong. The key wouldn't turn. No matter how much I forced it, no matter how I jiggled it from side to side, nothing. It was as if they had changed it. My God, they had changed the lock on my house. My heart started beating so fast, I thought I would have a heart attack right there on the porch of the house I bought with the sweat of 40 years cleaning offices. That's when I heard footsteps approaching from inside. The door opened, and there she was, Emily, my daughter-in-law. But she wasn't wearing her usual face, that mask of the perfect daughter-in-law she had worn for 3 years. No. This time she looked at me with a cold, cruel smile, as if I were some annoying stranger who had come to knock on her door. "Mother-in-law," she said with a voice that sent a chill down my spine, "we changed everything. This is our house now." And my legs almost gave out from under me. Our house. I bought this house by myself with my money, with my sacrifices. I worked since I was 16 years old, cleaning floors, bathrooms, entire office buildings from Monday to Sunday. I saved penny by penny until I had the $180,000 this property cost me. I put it in my name with my documents, with my signature. But out of a mother's love, that blind love we women have for our children, I allowed Robert, my only son, to live here with his wife temporarily, while they saved for their own place. Temporarily. What a dangerous word. "What do you mean, your house?" I asked, trying to stay calm, though a storm was raging inside me. "Emily, this house is in my name. I pay the taxes, I pay the utilities. Not anymore." She interrupted me with that despicable smile. "Robert and I have been working on this for months. We have all the necessary papers. You can't stay here anymore, mother-in-law. It's time for you to understand that things have changed." In that moment, something inside me broke. It wasn't just my heart, it was something deeper. The trust I had in my son, the faith I had that family was sacred, the belief that the unconditional love I'd given for 67 years meant something. But also, in that same instant, something else awoke. A strength I didn't know I had. A determination that had been sleeping for years of being the complacent grandmother, the tolerant mother-in-law, the mother who always said yes to keep the peace. I smiled. It was a smile that came from the depths of my soul, from the part of me that knew secrets they never imagined. I pulled my cell phone from my purse, the phone Robert had given me last year, saying, "So you can be more connected, Mom." "How nice of you to say that, Emily," I said, with a calmness that surprised even me, because the time has come to show you who really runs this family. Her eyes filled with confusion. She didn't understand why I wasn't crying, why I wasn't begging, why I didn't look defeated like they had surely planned. But I knew something they didn't. That when a 67-year-old woman smiles after her house has been stolen, it's because she has an ace up her sleeve that can destroy them completely. And boy, did I have one. As Emily stared at me with that confused expression, and Robert appeared behind her, like a cowardly ghost who couldn't look me in the eye, my mind flew back 40 years. To the days when he was just a 5-year-old boy, and his father abandoned us one December morning, taking even the grocery money and leaving us with rent to pay and a child to feed. "Robert," I said to my son, who was still hiding behind his wife, as if he were still that scared little boy, "do you remember when you used to ask me why I came home so late from work, why my hands were always red and rough, why we never had money to go to the movies like other families?" He looked down. Of course he remembered. But what he never knew was the whole truth. Ever since his father left us, I worked 3 different jobs. In the early morning from 5 to 8, I cleaned a bakery downtown. The owner, Mr. Armando, paid me $180 a month to wash floors, clean ovens, and leave everything sparkling before the bakers arrived. My hands were covered in burns from the steam and chemicals, but I never complained. From 9 in the morning to 6 in the evening, I worked in the offices of an insurance company. Another $420 a month for cleaning 3 entire floors, 30 offices, 6 bathrooms, and maintaining the plants. I went up and down stairs carrying buckets of dirty water vacuum cleaners that weighed more than my own son and cleaning products that made my eyes water. But every cent I earned, I saved religiously. And at night after Robert fell asleep, I went out again. I cleaned 2 medical offices and a law firm, another $220 a month. I would get home at 2 in the morning, collapse into bed for 3 hours, and at 5, I was up again to start the cycle all over. "Mom, I didn't know," Robert mumbled. But Emily nudged him to shut up. "You didn't know because you never wanted to know," I replied with a sadness that came from my soul. "When you asked me why we couldn't buy you brand-name sneakers like your friends, I told you I was saving for something special. I never told you that something special was our future, a home of our own where we would never again have to beg a landlord for another chance." For 15 years, I kept up that hellish routine. 15 years working 18 to 20 hours a day. My friends told me I was crazy, that I would get sick, that no son was worth that much sacrifice. But I knew that every backache, every burn on my hands, every sleepless night turned into dollars that piled up in my bank account. When Robert turned 20, I had already saved $95,000. I kept working for another 10 years until I had the $180,000 I needed to buy this house. A house in a safe neighborhood with 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a big kitchen where I could cook for my son when he visited with his future family. "This house," I said, looking straight at Emily, "I bought it thinking of your well-being, Robert, so you would have a place where you would always be welcome, where your children could grow up safe, where when I was gone, you would have something solid to inherit." Robert had tears in his eyes. For a moment, I thought he was going to react, that he would remember who his mother was, that he would defend me from the monster he had brought into our lives. But Emily spoke again, with that cold voice I now knew all too well. "Mother-in-law, that's all very nice, but times have changed. Robert and I have our own plans. We don't need your stories from the past anymore." That's when I knew the war had officially begun. I still remember the day Robert introduced her to me. It was a Sunday in March. We had planned to have lunch together in the park, like we did every weekend since he got his job at the bank. Suddenly, I saw him arrive holding hands with this beautiful, elegant girl, with a smile that looked like it came out of a magazine. "Mom, I want you to meet Emily," he told me with those shining eyes that only men in love have. "She's the woman of my life." She came over and hugged me as if she had known me forever. "Martha," she said with a voice as sweet as honey, "Robert has told me so much about you. He says you're the best mother in the world, that thanks to you he is the wonderful man he is today." Of course she won me over immediately. What mother doesn't fall in love with the woman who praises her son and acknowledges her sacrifices? For the next 6 months of their courtship, Emily was the perfect daughter-in-law. She would visit me with flowers, help me in the kitchen, ask for family recipes, and ask for my advice on how to make Robert happy. "Martha," she would say, as we prepared tamales for my son's birthday, "I hope one day to be as dedicated a mother as you are. Robert tells me how you worked day and night to give him the best. That's true love." When they got married, I insisted on throwing a beautiful party in the church hall. I spent $8,000 of my savings on that wedding, but seeing my son happy was priceless. Emily cried when I gave her my gift. The deed to the house with a note that said, "So you will always have a safe home to start your family." The first few months were wonderful. She cooked, we kept the house together, we talked about everything. She told me about her job as a secretary at a clinic, her plans to study nursing, how much she loved Robert. At night, I could hear them laughing in their bedroom, making plans for the future. And my heart filled with peace, thinking that I had finally achieved what every mother dreams of, to see her son happy and well married. But snakes know how to hide their venom very well. The change was so subtle that at first I thought I was imagining things, little comments that seemed innocent. "Oh, Martha, this sofa is so old. Don't you think it would be better to update the living room?" Or when her friends came over, "Yes, we live with my mother-in-law, but it's temporary while we save for our own house." Temporary. That word started appearing more frequently in her conversations. "It's temporary," she would tell her mother on the phone when she thought I wasn't listening. "It's temporary," she would explain to Robert when he suggested changing something in the decor. "It's temporary," she repeated to herself when she thought no one was watching her look at decoration magazines and sigh. Then came the accidents. My favorite vase, the one my mother had given me, showed up broken in the trash. "Oh, Martha, it slipped while I was cleaning. I'm sorry." My favorite armchair, where I sat every afternoon to knit, suddenly had a coffee stain that was impossible to remove. I don't know how it happened, Martha. It just appeared this morning. The changes in decoration began without my consent. My family photographs mysteriously disappeared, replaced by modern frames with pictures of her and Robert. My plants, which I had cared for years, began to dry up because I forgot to water them very frequently. Robert, I would say to my son when we were alone, I feel like Emily isn't very comfortable living with me. Maybe it would be better if you looked for your own place. Don't say that, Mom, he would always reply. She adores you. She's just adjusting. Give her time. Time. I gave her 3 years of time. 3 years of watching the sweet woman I met gradually transform into someone who looked at me as if I were an obstacle in my own home. Emily's true transformation began on the day we marked 2 years of living together. That morning I woke up and found the living room completely rearranged. My furniture was piled up in a corner as if it were trash, and in its place was new modern furniture that I had never seen before. "Good morning, mother-in-law," Emily said when she saw me standing at the entrance to the living room with my mouth open. She was eating breakfast calmly as if nothing had happened. "Do you like how it turned out? Robert and I decided to freshen up the space a bit." "You decided?" I asked, trying to stay calm even though my blood was boiling. "Emily, this is my furniture, my house, my living room. How could you change everything without consulting me?" "Oh, Martha, don't be so dramatic," she replied with a smile that was no longer sweet at all. "The furniture was ancient. It looked bad. This is much more modern, more functional. Robert is thrilled with the change." When my son came home from work that night, I expected him to say something to realize what had happened. But instead he sat on the new sofa and sighed with relief. "This is so comfortable, honey, excellent choice." "Robert," I said, pointing to my furniture piled in the corner, "what's going to happen to my things?" "Mom, that furniture was already so worn out. We can donate it. I'm sure someone needs it more than we do." Donate it. He wanted to donate the furniture I had bought with my labor in my house without even asking me. That night, I cried in silence as I listened to them laugh in their new living room, celebrating their successful renovation. But that was just the beginning. The following week, Emily invited her friends over without telling me. I came home from the market to find 5 strange women in my kitchen using my dishes, drinking coffee from my cups, talking about me as if I wasn't there. "This is the mother-in-law," Emily told them when she saw me enter, "the one I told you about, who has very old-fashioned ideas about decorating." Her friends looked at me with that condescending gaze we reserve for older people we consider obsolete. "Oh yes," said one of them. "My mother-in-law is the same way. They cling to their old things and don't understand that times change. It's just that sometimes they don't get," added another, "that when their children get married, they need their own space to create their own identity as a couple." They spoke about me in the third person as if I were invisible in my own kitchen. When I tried to join the conversation, Emily interrupted me. "Martha, why don't you go rest for a bit? We're done in here." They kicked me out of my own kitchen. The changes accelerated after that. Emily began to reorganize the entire house without my permission. My family photographs disappeared from the walls, replaced by modern art that she chose. My good china, the set I had inherited from my grandmother, was put away so it doesn't get damaged with daily use, and replaced with plates she liked better. "Martha," she said one day while packing my Christmas ornaments in boxes, "these old things are so worn out. We should buy new decorations for the holidays this year." "Those ornaments are 40 years old, Emily," I replied, trying to take the box from her hands. "I bought them when Robert was a little boy. We put them up together every December. It's our tradition." "Traditions can change too," she said, firmly pulling the box out of my reach. "Robert and I want to create our own family traditions." When December came, my house looked like a magazine catalog. Everything was perfect, modern, elegant. But there was no trace of the decorations that for decades had filled our home with memories and love. Robert said nothing. He had become so used to pleasing his wife that he no longer even noticed when pieces of his own history disappeared. The final humiliation came when her parents came to visit from Denver. Emily had even reorganized my bedroom without asking my permission, moving my things to make more room for their suitcases. "What a beautiful house you two have," her mother said as they toured my property. "You can tell you've decorated it with great taste." "Thanks, Mom," Emily replied with pride. "Robert and I have worked hard to make it look like this. Even though we live with his mother, we've managed to create our own style. Our own style. In my house with my furniture stored in the garage and my memories packed in boxes. That night, when they thought I was asleep, I heard Emily talking to her mother in the kitchen. We've almost made her feel uncomfortable enough to leave. With a little more pressure, I'm sure she'll decide to go live on her own." That's when I understood that it had all been a plan from the beginning. August 15th changed everything forever. That morning the phone rang very early. It was Mr. Morales, my brother Arthur's lawyer in Houston. His voice was serious, professional, but I could sense some restrained emotion. "Mrs. Martha," he said, "I'm sorry to inform you that your brother Arthur passed away last night from a heart attack, but I must also inform you that you are the sole heir to all his assets." My world came crashing down. Arthur and I had lost touch over the last 5 years because of something silly. A family misunderstanding that now seemed so insignificant. I never imagined he had left me as the heir to everything he owned. "How much are we talking about, Mr. Morales?" I asked with a broken voice. More from the sadness of losing my brother than curiosity about the money. "In total, it's $340,000, ma'am. Properties, bank accounts, and investments. Your brother was very successful with his import business. The papers are ready. We just need you to come to Houston to sign the transfer documents." When I hung up the phone, I sat in the kitchen for who knows how long, processing the news. Arthur was gone, but he had left me a fortune that would change my life forever. I could renovate the house, help Robert, or even buy a second property as an investment. What I didn't know was that Emily had been listening to the entire conversation from the living room. "Mother-in-law." She appeared suddenly with an expression I had never seen before, a mixture of feigned pity and poorly concealed excitement. "I heard about your brother. I'm so sorry for your loss." "Thank you, Emily," I replied, drying my tears. "Arthur and I hadn't spoken much lately, but I loved him." "Of course you did," she said, sitting next to me with a closeness she hadn't shown in months. "And it's wonderful that he remembered you in his will. $340,000 is a lot of money. You must feel so relieved to have that financial security at your age." The way she said, "at your age," made me uncomfortable, but I was too sad to pay it any mind. What I did notice was how her eyes sparkled when she mentioned the exact amount. She had heard the entire phone call. That same afternoon when Robert got home from work, Emily had already told him everything. For the first time in months, my son came to hug me with genuine affection. "Mom, I'm sorry about Uncle Arthur," he said. "But it gives me so much peace to know that you have that financial security now. You won't have to worry about anything anymore." Over the next few days, Emily's transformation was incredible. She went back to being the sweet daughter-in-law from the early months. She made me coffee in the mornings. She asked me how I had slept. She even suggested we cook together like we used to. "Mother-in-law," she said while we were making stew, "I've been thinking about how badly I've behaved lately. The stress from work, adjusting to marriage, it all made me very tense. But I want you to know that I love you very much and that this is your home." For a moment, my heart filled with hope. Maybe it had all been a misunderstanding. Maybe we could be a united family again. "Emily, I've been thinking too," I said as I stirred the stew. "And I want to do something special with part of Arthur's inheritance. I want to completely renovate this house. Remodel the kitchen, change the bathrooms, maybe add a deck. After all, this is going to be the family home for many years to come." Her eyes lit up like neon signs. "Oh, mother-in-law, what a wonderful idea. Robert and I could help you with all the planning. We have a great eye for design." And also, I continued, encouraged by her positive reaction, "I was thinking of setting aside some money for when you two have children, so the grandkids will have their college fund from the start." "Martha, you're an angel," she said, hugging me, but there was something about that hug that didn't feel genuine. "Robert and I were just talking about starting a family soon. Knowing you'd be willing to help with our children's education is incredible." That night, I heard them talking in their bedroom, but this time their conversation was different. I couldn't make out specific words, but the tone was one of excitement, of plans, of numbers. The next day, Emily insisted on accompanying me to the bank when I went to ask about the process for receiving the inheritance. "So you don't go alone, mother-in-law," she said with that smile I now knew was fake. "These procedures can be very confusing for an older person." At the bank, she sat next to me during the entire meeting with the manager, taking notes, asking questions about investments, term deposits, necessary documents, information I had never asked her to gather. "Mother-in-law," she said on the way back, "I've been researching real estate investments. With $340,000, we could buy another property, rent it out, and generate passive income. Robert knows the real estate market from his job at the bank." We could. She was no longer talking about my plans for my money. She was talking about our plans for our investments. The trap was closing, but I still didn't realize it. 3 weeks after receiving the news of the inheritance, something woke me up at 2 a.m. It was Emily's voice talking on the phone in the kitchen, trying to keep her voice down, but with an excitement that betrayed her. I got up silently and crept down the hallway, staying in the shadows. "No, Mom, I'm telling you it's almost done," she said to her mother with a voice I had never heard before, full of malice and triumph. The old woman has completely fallen for the trap. She's so excited about being the generous grandmother who's going to finance her future grandchildren's education that she doesn't suspect a thing. My blood turned to ice. The old woman, the trap. "Relax, Mom. We've almost got her to sign the house over to Robert. We're planting the idea that it would be better for tax purposes that he could get deductions as the property owner. Robert is already working on convincing her from his end." I felt my legs tremble. Robert knew about this, and with the new $340,000 inheritance, we can speed up the whole process. I already spoke to my cousin, the lawyer. He says with the right documents, we can get her to sign a broad power of attorney. Once we have that, we can manage all her bank accounts. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This woman, whom I had treated like a daughter, was planning to steal everything from me. "The plan is perfect, Mom. In 6 months tops, we'll have total control of her properties and her money. And by then, we'll have gathered enough medical evidence that she's losing her mental faculties to have her declared incompetent." Medical evidence. Mental faculties. Yes, I've already started documenting her episodes of confusion. I tell Robert she forgets things, that she repeats the same questions, that sometimes she can't remember where she put her keys. Robert is so naive, he's believing all of it. My legs finally gave way, and I had to lean against the wall to keep from falling. This woman had been planning to systematically destroy me for months, maybe years. "Don't worry about Robert, Mom. He'll do whatever it takes to protect me and our future. He already trusts me more than his own mother. When the time comes to put her in a nursing home, he'll sign the papers without hesitation." A nursing home Robert was going to sign to put me in a nursing home. Exactly, Mom. Once she's in there, we'll have the house free to completely remodel and put it up for sale. We figure with the $480,000 it's worth now, plus the $340,000 from the inheritance, plus what we make selling all her things, we'll be looking at almost $1 million. $1 million. All my 40 years of work, all my sacrifices, all my dreams of a united family turned into numbers on this Viper's calculator. Robert has already found a beautiful house in the residential area, Mom. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a big yard. Perfect for when we have kids. And the best part is it's far from this whole area, so the old woman can't come bother us when she gets out of the home, if she ever gets out. It was at that moment I heard footsteps in the hall. Robert was getting up to go to the bathroom. My heart raced, but I managed to hide behind the hall closet door. I waited for him to pass, but instead of continuing to the bathroom, he stopped at the kitchen entrance. "Who are you talking to at this hour?" he asked Emily. "My mom, honey. I couldn't sleep, so I called her. You know how she worries." "Is everything okay?" Robert asked, and I held my breath waiting for his reaction when Emily told him about her conversation. "Everything's perfect, my love. In fact, I was just telling her about the progress with your mom. How she's more receptive to the idea of putting the house in your name. How she's excited about investing the inheritance in family plans." There was a silence that felt like an eternity. "Emily," Robert finally said, "I don't know if I'm comfortable with all this. She's my mother, and I feel like we're manipulating her." My heart filled with hope. Robert still had a conscience. There was still something left of the son I had raised. "Oh, honey," Emily replied with that sweet voice I knew so well. "We're not manipulating her. We're just helping her make smart decisions for her future and ours. Don't you want our children to have financial stability?" "Yes, but—" "Robert, your mom is already 67 years old. What's she going to do with all that property and so much money? It makes much more sense for us who are young, who have plans, who are going to start a family, to manage these resources more productively." Another silence. "Besides," Emily continued, and her voice turned colder, "we've been living in this old house for 3 years with decades-old decor sharing space. Don't you think it's time we had our own home?" "You're right," Robert finally said, and with those 2 words, he completely shattered my heart. "Let's do it, but let's do it fast, before she changes her mind." I heard them kiss in the kitchen of my house, silently celebrating the greatest theft of my life. The next day, I woke up with a mental clarity I hadn't felt in years. The betrayal by Robert and Emily, instead of destroying me, had awakened a woman I thought was lost. The same one who worked 20 hours a day for 15 years. The one who faced the world alone when my husband abandoned us. The one who never gave up in the face of any obstacle. But this time would be different. This time, I wasn't going to work harder. I was going to work smarter. During breakfast, I acted as if nothing had happened. I smiled at them, served them coffee, asked about their plans for the day. But inside, I was calculating every move like a general planning a war. "Emily," I said as I washed the dishes, "I've been thinking about what you told me about putting the house in Robert's name for the tax benefits. Do you think you could find out exactly what documents we need?" Her eyes lit up. "Of course, mother-in-law. Actually, I've already been looking into it. My cousin Javier is a lawyer. He can help us with the whole process." "You're so efficient," I replied with a smile I hoped looked genuine. "And I also wanted to ask you about the investments. Could you come with me to the bank this week to look at the options?" "Of course. Could we go on Wednesday afternoon? I'm free after work." "Perfect." While she thought she was speeding up her plan, I was building mine. That afternoon, when Robert and Emily went out shopping, I called my best friend Linda, the only person in the world I trusted completely. We had been friends since elementary school. We had raised our children together. We had survived divorces, illnesses, and all the tragedies life had thrown at us. "Linda," I said when she answered the phone, "I need you to come to my house immediately and bring your recorder, the one you use for the neighborhood association meetings." "What's wrong, Martha? You sound strange." "My son and my daughter-in-law are trying to steal everything from me, Linda, and I'm going to need your help to destroy them legally." An hour later, my friend was sitting in my kitchen as I told her the whole story. Her eyes filled with tears as I recounted the conversation I had overheard the night before. "Those monsters," she muttered, clenching her fists. "And what are you going to do?" "I'm going to give them exactly what they want," I replied with a smile that came from the depths of my soul. "But first, I need evidence of everything they're planning." My friend Linda turned out to be the perfect accomplice. Over the next few days, we installed small recording devices in strategic places around the house, one in the kitchen, another in the living room, one more on the landline phone. She also taught me how to use my cell phone's recording feature without being noticed. Meanwhile, I began my performance as the confused old lady. I started forgetting where I put my keys, repeating questions I had already asked, getting confused about dates. Nothing too dramatic, just enough for Emily to feel that her plan to declare me mentally incompetent had a solid basis. "Oh, mother-in-law," she'd say when I asked what day it was for the second time. "Did you forget I told you 5 minutes ago?" "Did I really say that?" I'd reply with a genuinely confused look. "I'm sorry, Emily. Lately I feel like my memory is failing me." At night, she and Robert would discuss my episodes with feigned concern. "Maybe we should take her to the doctor," Robert would say. "It could be the beginning of dementia." "You're right, honey," Emily would reply. "And it would be good to have that diagnosis documented just in case." Just in case they needed to declare me incompetent, of course. During this time, I also discreetly consulted with 3 different lawyers. I didn't want any of them to have the full picture of my situation, but I needed to understand exactly what my legal rights were and how I could protect myself. Mr. Hernandez explained family fraud to me. Ma'am, if someone tries to make you sign documents by deceiving you, or if they forge your signature, that is a federal crime. The penalties can range from 5 to 20 years in prison. Ms. Ruiz educated me on powers of attorney. Never ever sign a broad power of attorney unless you are absolutely sure. With that document, the person can sell your properties, empty your bank accounts, even commit you to an institution without your consent. Mr. Morales spoke to me about inheritances and wills. At your age, ma'am, it is advisable to have everything very well documented and protected. An updated will, a trust if necessary, and to appoint someone trustworthy as the executor. Armed with all this legal information, I began the second phase of my plan, getting them to reveal their true intentions while the recorders were running. It was time for Robert and Emily to find out who Martha really was. On October 10th, I announced my decision during breakfast with the best performance of my life. I let the perfect tears fall. My voice cracked at the right moment, and I watched Emily's eyes light up with the victory she thought she held in her hands. "Kids," I said, as I stirred my coffee with trembling hands, "I've been thinking a lot about what we've talked about the house, the inheritance, my future." Robert stopped chewing his pastry. Emily leaned forward like a predator smelling blood. "I've decided you're right," I continued in the voice of a defeated old woman. "I'm too old to handle so many responsibilities. I want to go visit my cousin Linda in Florida for 2 weeks to think things over clearly. And when I come back, we'll do all the paperwork you think is best." "Mom," Robert said with a concern that sounded genuine, "are you sure you don't have to make any hasty decisions?" But Emily was already calculating. "Of course, mother-in-law. A break will do you a world of good. We can take care of the house while you're away." "Thank you, kids. I'll leave tomorrow morning and be back on the 25th. Emily, could you help me pack? I don't have the strength to be carrying suitcases up and down." "Of course, mother-in-law. I'll be happy to help." That night, while Emily helped me fold clothes, I asked the question I needed for my plan. "Honey, when I get back from my trip, do you think we could take the opportunity to sort out the papers for the house?" "Absolutely, mother-in-law. In fact, I already spoke with my cousin the lawyer. He can come right here to the house so you don't have to go anywhere. We just need your ID, the original deed, and for you to sign where he tells you." "And what about the inheritance? Could we organize that too?" "Of course. Robert already spoke with the bank about opening a joint account. That will make it easier to manage the investments." "A joint account? How convenient." The next day I said goodbye to them with real tears, but not of sadness, but of contained rage. I hugged them, knowing it was the last time I would do so as the naive mother they had been manipulating for years. "Take good care of the house," I said from the taxi door. "When I get back, I expect to find everything just as I left it." "Don't you worry about a thing, Mom," Robert shouted from the window. "Rest and relax." But instead of going to the airport, I asked the taxi driver to take me to the downtown Royal Hotel 20 minutes from my house. There I checked in under my maiden name Martha and paid for 2 weeks' lodging in advance. My friend Linda had found me the best private investigator in the city, an ex-cop named Sergio Mendoza, who specialized in family fraud cases. He cost $500 a day, but he was worth every penny. "Mrs. Morales," he said when we met in the hotel lobby, "my job is simple. I am going to document everything they do in your house for these 2 weeks. Videos, photographs, audio recordings, all legally admissible." "Can you film inside my own house?" "With your written authorization, yes. You are the legal owner. You have the right to monitor your property." For the first 3 days, the cameras Sergio discreetly installed in my house captured exactly what I expected. Robert and Emily wasted no time. On the first day, they started moving my personal belongings into the garage. On the second day, they arrived with boxes to pack up everything they considered the old woman's junk. But on the third day, the golden evidence arrived. Emily called someone on the phone, and the hidden camera in the kitchen captured the entire conversation. "Javier, I need you to come tomorrow with the documents. Yes, all the ones we talked about. The power of attorney, the house transfer, and the bank papers." A voice could be heard from the phone asking, "Do you have her signature yet?" "I don't need her signature, cousin. I have samples of her handwriting from years of living with her. Your secretary can forge it perfectly, just like we did with the other documents. The other documents, they had forged my signature before. And what if the old woman comes back early? She's not coming back. I put sleeping pills in her coffee before she left. She's going to be groggy and confused for days. By the time she snaps out of it, we'll have everything signed and legalized. Sleeping pills. This woman had drugged me. On the fourth day, the cameras captured something even worse. Robert and Emily brought in appraisers to evaluate the property, and then a real estate agent arrived. The house is in excellent condition, the agent told Emily. In this market, we could list it for $520,000 and sell it in less than a month. Perfect, Emily replied. We want to close the sale as quickly as possible. My mother-in-law is developing dementia, and we need to liquidate her assets before she gets worse. Do you have power of attorney? We'll have it this week. My husband is the only son, the direct heir of a woman who was still alive and perfectly sane. On the fifth day came the most painful moment of all. The cameras showed Robert packing up all my family photographs, my memories of when he was a child, all the gifts he had given me over the years. What do we do with all this? He asked Emily, holding a picture of himself at age 5 dressed as a superhero for Halloween. Throw it all out, she replied without even looking. It's just a bunch of old junk that's useless. My son, the boy I had dedicated my entire life to, threw 40 years of family memories in the trash without batting an eye. But I was no longer the same woman who had left that house 2 weeks before. I was a woman with a plan, with evidence, and with a thirst for justice that would not be quenched until I saw these two manipulators pay for everything they had done to me. On the 25th, I returned home with a smile and a surprise that would change their lives forever. When the taxi dropped me off in front of my house on October 25th at 3 in the afternoon, I was carrying something in my purse more powerful than any weapon. The complete evidence of the greatest betrayal of my life documented in high-definition videos and professional quality audio recordings. The investigator Sergio had given me a USB drive that morning with over 100 hours of material that proved without a doubt that Robert and Emily had committed fraud, forgery, illegal sale of property, and conspiracy to strip me of all my assets. But most importantly, I had the full recording of Emily confessing to her cousin on the phone exactly how they planned to declare me mentally incompetent and put me in a nursing home to take my fortune of nearly $1 million. When I tried to open the door and discovered they had changed the lock, I didn't feel surprise but a deep satisfaction. Everything was going exactly as I had planned. Every move they made had been documented, every word recorded, every illegal action captured on high-definition video. The initial confrontation with Emily was perfect. Her arrogance, her coldness, her total contempt for me were all being recorded on my cell phone, which I had discreetly activated before knocking on the door. But the best was yet to come. When I took out my phone and told her it was time to show them who was really in charge, I saw the first spark of confusion in her eyes. She didn't understand why I wasn't crying, begging, or acting like the defeated old woman they expected to find. "Emily," I said with a calmness that surprised even myself, "I want you to call Robert and for both of you to come out here to the backyard. We need to talk about something very important." "What do you have to talk about, mother-in-law?" she replied with that smug smile I knew so well. "We already told you things have changed. You can't stay here anymore." "Oh, things have definitely changed," I said as I dialed my friend Linda's number. "But not in the way you think." When Robert appeared in the yard, he still couldn't look me in the eye. Over the past 2 weeks, he had sold my furniture, packed my memories like garbage, and signed papers to sell my house. But he still had enough of a conscience to feel shame. "Kids," I said, gesturing to the patio chairs, "sit down. It's time for you to learn who Martha really is." Emily laughed with contempt. "Mother-in-law, enough with the drama. We know exactly who you are. An old woman who can no longer take care of herself and who needs help making rational decisions." "Rational decisions," I repeated as I put my phone on speaker. "Like this one. And then I played the recording that would change everything forever. Emily's voice filled the yard with crystal clarity. "Relax, Mom. I've almost got the old woman to sign the house over to Robert. With the new inheritance in less than a year, we'll have everything and we can send her to a nursing home." I watched Robert's face transform from confusion to horror as he listened to his wife describe in detail how they planned to rob me of everything. Every word was a stab. "We can get her to sign a broad power of attorney, declare her incompetent. Robert will sign the papers without a doubt." But the part that destroyed him the most was when he heard his own voice reply, "You're right. Let's do it. But let's do it fast before she changes her mind." "Mom," Robert whispered, tears in his eyes. "You didn't finish listening, son," I said, and I played the second recording. This time it was Emily's voice talking to the lawyer about forging my signature, about the sleeping pills she had put in my coffee, about selling the house for $520,000 while I was supposedly developing dementia. Emily was as pale as a ghost. How do you have those recordings?" "Because I never went to Florida, Emily. I stayed in a hotel here in the city. I hired the best private investigator I could find, and I documented every second of your betrayal." I took the USB drive from my purse and placed it on the patio table. "Here I have over 100 hours of video showing you selling my furniture, forging documents, planning my forced institutionalization, and selling my house to a real estate agent." Robert shot up from his chair as if he'd seen a ghost. "Mom, I didn't know. Well, I knew some things, but not everything. We never wanted to hurt you." "You never wanted to hurt me," I yelled for the first time in years. "Robert, you threw away the pictures of you as a child. You sold the furniture I bought with 40 years of work. You signed papers to sell the house where your mother raised you." Emily tried to regain control. "Mother-in-law, you're misinterpreting everything. We just wanted to help you make better financial decisions." "Help me!" I roared with a fury that had been building for years. "You drugged me. You forged my signature. You conspired to declare me insane." That's when I dialed the number I had been waiting 2 weeks to use. "Mr. Hernandez," I said when he answered the phone. "This is Martha. I have all the evidence we need. It's time to press charges." The look on Emily's face when she heard the words, "press charges," was something I will treasure for the rest of my life. It was the face of someone who finally understands the game is over, and they have lost in the most spectacular way possible. "What charges are you talking about?" she stammered, but her voice had none of the arrogance it had shown half an hour before. "Family fraud document, forgery, illegal sale of property, conspiracy to commit fraud, and attempted dispossession of property," I replied, reciting the exact crimes Mr. Hernandez had explained to me. "In total, you're looking at between 15 and 25 years in prison." Robert collapsed into his chair as if he had been shot. "Mom, please, we can fix this. I'll give everything back. I'll pay whatever it takes." "Give back what, Robert?" I asked with a coldness that came from my soul. "The furniture you already sold, the family photographs you threw in the trash, the 40 years of memories you packed up like they were garbage." At that moment, my friend Linda arrived, accompanied by Mr. Hernandez and 2 officers from the police department. We had coordinated everything perfectly. The moment of confrontation, the delivery of evidence, and the formal filing of the complaint. "Mrs. Martha," the lawyer greeted me as he opened his briefcase. "Are these the individuals mentioned in your complaint?" "Yes, Mr. Hernandez. Robert, my son, and Emily, my daughter-in-law." The police officers approached with arrest warrants. "Robert and Emily, you are under arrest for the crimes of family fraud, document forgery, and conspiracy to commit dispossession of property." "Wait," Emily shouted, standing up. "This is a misunderstanding. We never signed anything. Everything was planned for her well-being." One of the officers showed her the USB drive I had provided. "Ma'am, we have over 100 hours of video of you planning and executing these crimes. Your own voice confessing to forging the victim's signature." As they read them, their rights, Mr. Hernandez explained the legal process to me. "Mrs. Martha, with the evidence you've gathered, this case is practically a slam dunk. We have also begun the process to recover all the assets they illegally sold and to freeze the bank accounts where they deposited the money." "And what will happen to them?" I asked, though deep down I already knew. With the aggravating factors of family violence and elder abuse, we're looking at 12 to 20 years of effective prison time. Robert looked at me from the back seat of the patrol car, his eyes full of tears. "Mom, forgive me. I don't know when I lost my way. I love you. I've always loved you." For a second, just 1 second, my mother's heart softened. But then I remembered his voice on that recording saying, "Let's do it fast before she changes her mind." And the stone returned to its place. "Robert," I said, approaching the police car window, "I worked for 40 years to give you a future. I sacrificed my youth, my health, my social life, everything for you, and you chose to betray me for money. For 67 years, I was your mother. As of today, I am just Martha, a woman who finally learned that unconditional love cannot be one-sided." Emily was still screaming from the other patrol car. "This isn't over. I have lawyers. My family has connections. You're going to regret this." I walked over to her window and smiled at her with the same coldness she had smiled at me with when she changed the locks on my house. "Emily, dear, your family doesn't have enough connections to go up against a woman who spent 40 years cleaning the offices of the most important lawyers in this city. Trust me, I know people you can't even imagine." When the patrol cars drove away, I stood in the yard of my house with my friend Linda and Mr. Hernandez, feeling a peace I hadn't experienced in years. "Are you comfortable with the decision you made?" the lawyer asked me. "Mr. Hernandez," I replied, looking at my house which was officially mine again. For 3 years, I allowed them to disrespect me in my own home. I allowed them to make me feel like a nuisance, a burden, like someone who didn't deserve dignity in her own house. I paused and took a deep breath. Today I learned that it's never too late to defend yourself, that age is no excuse to allow abuse, and that sometimes true love means knowing when to say, "Enough is enough." 6 months later, Robert was sentenced to 18 years in prison. Emily received 22 years for being considered the mastermind of the fraud. I recovered all my assets plus a compensation of $150,000 for moral damages. With the money from my brother's inheritance and the legal compensation, I bought a smaller but beautiful house in a quiet area. My friend Linda moved in next door, and together we created the life we always dreamed of. Peaceful, dignified, and full of mutual respect. Every night before I go to sleep, I look at the photograph I recovered from the trash. Robert, at 5 years old, dressed as a superhero, smiling at me with genuine love. And I speak to that little boy who was once my everything. "Son, your mother did what she had to do, not for revenge, but for justice. Not out of hatred, but out of self-love. Maybe one day when you get out of prison, you'll understand that sometimes the most important lessons are the most painful." Because in the end, the story didn't end with a mother destroyed by her family's betrayal. It ended with a 67-year-old woman who proved that it's never too late to reclaim your power, your dignity, and your right to be respected. And that is the most important lesson any family can learn. That true love should never be confused with allowing abuse, and that those who betray the trust of their elders will always find the justice they deserve.